Any movie fans in the room? Any of you like Marvel? How about fans of scary movies? Or are you more of a Disney person like me? Okay, here's another question. How many of you love watching movie trailers? Yep, me too. There's exciting music and the editors have pieced together the most ridiculous action scenes or the funniest one-liners to make the movie seem absolutely awesome. Now, whether I have any intention of actually seeing the movie or not, I still love seeing the preview of it because it leaves me wondering. And here's what I know for a fact. There's always more to the story than what I see in the trailer. You see, it wouldn't make sense for editors to give away the whole entire story in a 2-minute preview. But also, I bet you've had this experience as well. There have been trailers that I've seen that made movies seem like it was going to be the scariest, funniest, or greatest movie in human history. Then I watched the movie and it was meh. Like they literally showed the best parts of the movie in the trailer and the rest was garbage. Oh, there was still more to the story of that movie. It just wasn't that great. For the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about things that are really similar to movie trailers. We're talking about parts of life that we have all had an idea about, parts of life that you see in culture almost everywhere. And there's often more to the story than what we see in the previews in both good and bad ways. We all kind of know something, but there's way more to the story. And we're gonna start by talking about sex. Okay, I get it. Talking about sex in church can be a little weird until you think about the fact that it's talked about almost everywhere else. Singers sing about it, rappers rap about it, Netflix shows don't avoid it. It's everywhere on TikTok, magazines at the grocery store even talk about it on the covers. Movies use it as a selling point. It's talked about at school, it's joked about with friends, and some of you may wish that your families would stop trying to have that conversation. Or you may be thinking, I already know what you're going to say. Even if you haven't been around church much, you've probably been around church people or Christian TikTokers enough to get the idea that God cares a lot about our sex lives. In fact, maybe you feel like God hates sex. That's the story. Or maybe you feel like God's mad about sex. That's the story. Or God only cares about virginity, and that's the whole story. And if that's true, I'm sure it brings up questions like, is it bad that I'm thinking about it? Is it bad that I want to do it? Can I do everything but actual sex? I know people who've had sex and none of them died. Is it really that big of a deal? Or maybe I've had sex, so does that mean that I'm doomed forever? What if it wasn't my choice and someone else made the decision for me? What does God think about that? What am I supposed to do now? Or I can't even get a guy or a girl to be interested in me. So trust me, sex is not a temptation for me. So I can just skip church for a few weeks. And I get that this is a loaded topic, and sometimes it can feel like God only cares about one thing or one act or one mistake. But as we get started, I want you to know that that is not an accurate picture. The truth is this: when it comes to God's plan for sex, there's more to the story. Here's what's amazing. We can actually find guidance for our very real questions today by looking at the wisdom of those who lived thousands of years ago. In fact, people back then were asking some of the same questions that we are today. We're going to take a look at a letter the Apostle Paul wrote to the people of Corinth. Because of where it was located, people were often passing through Corinth on their way to make money somewhere else. Corinth was kind of known for being a place to party and misbehave before moving on. Even though these people lived 2,000 years ago, they don't sound at all ancient to me. Some of the people living in Corinth also had questions about what it meant to follow Jesus. So Paul writes this letter that covers all sorts of topics, but he had a lot to say about the topic of sex. And it's the way that he starts this portion of his letter that I want us to think about today. Check it out. He says, I have the right to do anything. That's what he said. That's where he actually starts in this verse. But he's actually quoting a common phrase from the Corinthian culture at the time. It was like the ancient equivalent to this: I do what I want. So Paul begins with the idea in mind that I have the right to do anything. But look at what he says next. I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. Paul speaks right into the Corinthian culture and into our world today and basically says, look, I know it's popular to do whatever you feel like doing, but just because you can does not mean that you should. In a particularly sexual culture, Paul reminds the Corinthians that just because you can do something doesn't mean that it's the best thing for you to do. And the same thing is true about sex today. Some of our lives will be so much easier, so much less complicated, and so much less stressful if we just stopped asking, can I do this without getting into trouble? Or can I do this without getting caught? Instead, what if we started asking, is this good for me? Is this the best thing for my life? In fact, learning to think about what's best over what's simply common is part of becoming a mature person. And there's more to it than that. Whether you're sexually active, thinking about someone sexually, or consuming sexual content on the screen, there's almost always another person involved. So you and I can't just think about ourselves when it comes to this topic. Yes, we should ask, is this best for me? But we may be able to talk ourselves into doing something that we think is right for us, even though it might be harmful to someone else. If we really want to get this right, we should go even further. Instead of asking, is this best for me? We should be asking, is this best for we? Is this best for me and the other person? This way of thinking is not optional for those of us who follow Jesus. In fact, when asked what's most important, this was part of Jesus' answer. Love your neighbor as yourself. Something might feel good for the moment, but if it's not good for your future or the future of the other person that you're doing it with, it's out. If something is fine for you, but you don't know or you can't know if it's harming another person, it's across the line. You see, Jesus was so clear about what God is like. How you treat people and how they treat you is a big deal to God. God doesn't hate sex and doesn't want to keep us from it. God wants us to become the kind of person who loves God and looks out for other people's best interests because of Him. And here's what's crazy. Your dating life and your relationship will be better because of it. How do I know? Because it's what everybody wants. We all want to be in the kind of relationship where each person looks out for the best interest of another. We all want mutual love and respect and with someone we can trust to have our back. We all want the kind of friends and boyfriends and girlfriends who will look out for our future, even if we're not doing the best job of looking out for it ourselves. You see, this is what we set ourselves up for when we follow the instructions and the wisdom of Paul. Wisdom that's aligned with the way of life that Jesus says is best. But wanting to live like this and actually living this way are two very different things. I realize that there are all kinds of feelings and desires that factor in. In fact, some of you may have acted upon those desires and feelings in the past. Maybe some of you wish that you could have made that choice for yourself, but somebody else acted upon their impulse, and you were the victim of that. If that's you, I am so sorry. It's not your fault. No matter what your experience is, I want you to know that no one's past actions, yours or someone else's, have to determine what your next action is. Here's why. As followers of Jesus, we can and should become people of sexual integrity. I get that sexual integrity isn't a super common term. Integrity just means someone is trustworthy, honest, and looks out for others. They're the kind of person whose beliefs and words line up with their actions. And just like you can be a person of integrity in your academics and in your friendships, you can and should have integrity in your sex life, no matter what your past experiences are. Sexual integrity is about more than just saving sex until marriage or feeling guilty for not waiting. It's choosing to honor God and others in how we think about, treat, and value the people who we date. So how do you become a person of sexual integrity? Integrity is about the person you want to be. You can always choose to live with sexual integrity starting now. Nothing that you've done and nothing that has been done to you can take that away. You may be thinking, sexual integrity sounds nice, but can you just tell me where the line is, what's okay and what's not? Now, there's no shortage of people out there who will tell you or decide for you, but I want you to think for yourself. I want you to ask questions, wrestle with what's true, listen to older, wiser people, and then make a decision for yourself. Not just a decision about what you will and won't do moving forward, but a decision about the kind of person that you want to be. A few steps that I believe that you can take. First, talk to God about who you really want to be. Invite God into the story of your life, your whole life, and yes, even your sex life. You may have never done that before, but just know that God cares. And it might seem awkward at first, but God loves you and wants to show you how to experience life the best way that it's meant to be. I believe that when we talk to God, God listens. And when we listen to God, God will lead us to what we should do and what's best. Even if you're new to this whole church thing or exploring faith, try this. I mean, what do you have to lose, really? If He really does lead you to what's best for your sex life, isn't that what you really want anyway? Now, second, talk to someone about how you plan to become that person. Bring it up with a trusted adult like your small group leader. Now listen, I know that sounds weird, but trust me, you won't scare them away or stress them out. They'll be proud of you. And if you feel like skipping this step because you have to hide the choices that you're making, that's not integrity. Integrity is rarely something that you feel the need to hide. So the more openly you talk about what you're feeling, what you're struggling with, and how you plan to become the person that you really want to be, the more you'll stay focused on becoming a person of integrity in all areas of life. I get that this is complicated. And it's not the kind of thing you want to talk about with just anybody. That's why we have small groups. We want every one of you to have a group of people that you can figure out life with, even when the conversations are personal. And we want you to have a leader that you trust, that you can talk to about anything. Your group leader is that kind of person. And if you don't feel comfortable talking in front of your group, we get it. You can talk another time with your leaders too. They'll totally get it and understand. Imagine if accepting this invitation led you to a life that's better than what you could possibly dream of. If you choose this way of life, you might just find that when it comes to God's plan for sex, there really is more to the story.